Welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Purendra Prasad. I work in the Department of Sociology, University of Hyderabad as a professor. Today I will be talking about fifth module, role of religion and medicine in healing. This is part of the Sociology of Health course. Is there a relationship between religion and medicine? Are they not actually opposite kind of themes? In terms of health and bodily healing processes, there is a very strong correlation between religion and medicine. If you look at in the early stages of the human history, whether you talk about the Mesopotamian civilization, Egyptian civilization, Indus Valley civilization, from then onwards, role of religion is formidable. For example, in Mesopotamian civilization, if you look at the accounts, they indicate that illness or sickness is result of one's own sin, because human beings disobeyed the work of God. They remained as sinners, and sinners actually received lot of these gifts from gods as punishment, and therefore most of these diseases were treated as curse or as punishment. This is how Mesopotamian civilization actually tells us. Similarly, Egyptian civilization, they also talk about the cause of illness and sickness is primarily because of the non-fulfillment of God's work or disobeying the God's wishes that they are supposed to perform. It is a different matter that in Egypt they have used the modern art of medicine very effectively to preserve mummies. Even today you find the mummies actually are preserved with so much of scientific kind of medical knowledge. So there is a correlation between religion and medicine right from the beginning. If you look at Ayurveda, for instance, Ayurveda always in the early stages, in the pre-Vedic period and in terms of Vedic period. In pre-Vedic period, of course, religion was not associated with medicine, but in Vedic period, Hindu religion was intimately associated with medical knowledge, where they dispensed herbs, roots and other kind of medicines through chanting of hymns, through the symbolic kind of grains, water, etc. That was primarily to indicate that it is not simply in terms of the medicinal value of the plants and the other kind of materials, but it is the sacred kind of value that is bestowed upon the medicine through different materials that is actually given. And this is where in the Vedic period it actually happened. But if you move a little further, maybe in terms of the Buddhist period, from the religious kind of a thing to that of more scientific healing system were inaugurated during the Buddhist period. In fact, most of the monks who wandered across the country collected lot of these herbs and roots and other set of medical regimen dispensed freely without actually introducing any secrecy. The public kind of dissemination was one of the principle. The language that they used during the Buddhist healing system was largely Prakrit, not Sanskrit, so that people can understand how medicine can be effectively used to ameliorate the suffering. But in the post-Buddhist period, again during the Gupta period and onwards, the Ayurvedic medicine was again Sanskritized and Brahminized, and where you have the medical knowledge was again incorporated into the religious kind of corpus of knowledge. So, you have Ayurveda, which talks about balance in terms of the humors within the bodily system, is primarily achieved not only in terms of the medical kind of value, but it is also linked with the immediate surrounding. So, the environment and other factors were as important in terms of understanding. So, all these set of things that we can see, okay, whether it is Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Indus Valley civilization, and then when you look at the Buddhist period and in the post-Buddhist period, similarly when you look at the, say for instance, Sikh religion, Sikhs believe that the sickness actually is something that is one's own making, and by reading Guru Granth regularly, one can actually heal the suffering or pain that one is undergoing. Okay. Similarly about Christianity, when you look at the notion of actually body, mind and soul, the way that Christian religion actually talks about healing the soul, okay, addressing the soul is as important. And when you look at the early part of Christianity, particularly during the, say, medieval Europe, okay, the Christianity actually identified a lot of these sinners in terms of their bodily smell, bodily stink and their kind of bodily hygiene. So, what does that indicate? Catholicism actually directly linked the body purity with that of the kind of knowledge that they possessed, and in terms of linking up with how they practiced and how close are they in terms of accepting the word of God. And that is where the Catholicism identified largely in terms of the bodily kind of things, while Protestantism actually moved away from these notions of mediating the bodily humors and bodily hygiene with that of the religion. Protestantism actually emphasized in terms of receiving the word of God directly, and work became worship, and therefore Max Weber and others actually talked about how religious reformation actually played a very important role in the development of capitalism, which means development of modern medicine as well. So, one could see these significant developments in the Christianity. So, the question asked in academic discussion is that why is religion associated with healing and medicine? In the early period, religion actually is associated with medical practices or healing process, because the cause of diseases was thought to be the evil spirit and demons, and propitiating the gods and complying with the religious practices actually can help them overcome their pain and suffering. That's one of the reasons. But if you look at the colonial period, for instance, when British actually colonized in India, for instance, Christian missionaries played a very important role, and missionaries were allowed not only in terms of mainstream areas, but interior tribal areas, where the Christian missionaries actually made inroads into all aspects of people's lives. So, if you look at whether it is Mizoram or northeastern states, or in terms of Kashmir, and in different parts of Kerala, one could find actually Christian missionaries' role in healing processes. The belief was that sick body or weak body is not capable of receiving the word of God. So, if you have to actually be a true Christian or true kind of believer, you need to have a healthy body, and therefore it is important that your health actually becomes a responsibility of the religious kind of domain as well. So, there was actually a direct link that was seen, and hence missionaries tried to actually intervene in terms of people's development, in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of their welfare activity. And in all these activities, I think they used religion very effectively to spread the message about bodily health. But then what actually made the religious kind of values give way? It is the scientific spirit, it is after industrialization, the way the increase in the scientific temperament, rationality actually provided the basis for the medical science to become an independent empirical kind of a science. Okay. So, when you look at the way in European context, for example, okay, a lot of progress that happened in medical science actually was that they tried to move away from the earlier notions of the kind of unscientific and religious kind of notions that contribute to the causation of illness and sickness. Okay. So, what did that give rise to? Religion actually was replaced by scientific modern medicine. However, what is common between these two was that when religion was predominant, which provided the cure and the solutions for the sufferers, body was the prime kind of a template. So, it was always the priest or the pastors and bishops who they were all actually like the medicine men. They were actually both the religious men and the medicine men. Okay. When you look at the modern medicine, even when medical profession actually was trying to give a scientific kind of a causative reason why diseases actually are emanating and how it can be addressed, here again body is the important kind of a site of intervention. Okay. How did this actually happen? Okay. Both, okay, during the period of the pre-industrial revolution and in the post industrial revolution period, body actually was seen as a passive. Okay. So, there is a notion that either religious priest or a kind of a modern kind of a doctor has better knowledge about the human body compared to one's own experience, one's own feelings, one's own kind of subjective kind of knowledge systems. And this is where I think a lot of debates that happened within sociology of health to understand why body actually became a kind of a canonical form, a passive kind of a template on which scientific knowledge system actually played a very important role, and it started imposing the knowledge. And this is where Michael Foucault and others actually talk about how the way the knowledge and power actually played a significant role in modern societies in terms of controlling the bodies. And he uses this concept called biopopulation and anatomical atlas. This is primarily to indicate that how biomedical knowledge actually started playing a very important role in regulating the population and their behavior in modern society. So, while the religion prescribed what to eat, what not to eat, how to behave, what is the way in which health can be improved, similarly modern dietitians and nutritionists and physiotherapists actually today are prescribing certain diet and certain regimen and regulating the human bodies. Both in the earlier societies and in modern societies, they are prescribing how to behave. So, in today's context, do we think that there is a relationship between religion and medicine? With the rise of rational scientific kind of knowledge system, has religion actually been nullified in the process of healing, or there is still a role for religion? Now, to just give you some examples, if you take the recent kind of disease burden which is rising globally, say for instance HIV/AIDS, cancer and other set of diseases where biomedical knowledge actually has been very limited in curing or in addressing the diseases completely. In that context, a lot of these sufferers actually have been turning to spirituality and religion. So, while seeking the medical treatment from the modern scientific medicine, they also have been actually seeking solace from the religious kind of domain. In a sense that a lot of people in South Asia particularly, it is not only in terms of the chronic diseases such as HIV/AIDS, cancer and other diseases, but even in terms of other set of ailments and suffering. In Indian context, for example, lot of people actually have been practicing both religious healing and the scientific medical kind of a healing system. So, there are no one way of actually saying that this is the only trend. If you look at say for instance mental health, a lot of research has indicated that religion actually has been playing a very regressive role, because it has been restricting people in terms of not able to overcome certain of their conditions of depression, conditions of anxiety and other physiological conditions. Religion has been restricting them to only seek within a particular kind of practices. So, a lot of researchers say that it is also a kind of curse. So, while there are certain groups of people, certain classes of people actually they perceive that religion is a great reliever, but there is also another set of views that religion has been a major bottleneck in terms of addressing the pain and suffering that people are undergoing. So, in this sense, one cannot simply dismiss that religion is regressive, religion is irrational, and therefore religion actually has no role to play. Given the poverty, given the kind of healthcare systems which are inaccessible to a large majority of the working class, and also to the special population in terms of the tribal groups, in terms of some of the minorities, a lot of people living in different kind of geographical zones do not have access to health care of any sort, whether it is modern or non-modern. So, in that sense, they cannot simply wish away that religion does not have any role. So, whatever that actually provides them solace, provides them some solution, people have been actually practicing. But as sociologists, we need to understand these complexities of each society, why there is a significant role of religion in a particular point of time, why role of religion is less in other cultures and in other societies. We cannot actually see in black and white saying that this is good and this is bad, but I think understanding complexity helps us to actually explain the phenomena and understand the relationship between religion and medicine. If you look at the third world countries, I think a lot of medical institutions actually are run by the religious kind of institutions. Okay, so what does that mean? The kind of religious institutions, whether it is Christian institutions, Muslim institutions, or Hindu institutions, lot of these institutions have been running modern medical colleges, hospitals, and different kinds of services. So, why are they doing it? Is that again not contrary to what they actually believe in? Okay. Here I think one needs to understand that given the kind of dire need for actually reaching out to the different classes and different castes and different regions, these religious institutions actually are playing a very significant role. Okay? And these religious institutions actually are providing free of cost treatment. Sometimes they also provide treatment at the people's homes. They reach out actually very efficiently. So, I think the complexity that we are talking about is that the religious kind of priests and the institutions do not think that it is contradicting their kind of views. Okay? Restoring the bodily health through modern scientific knowledge system is very important, and therefore there is a huge transformation that has happened even within the religious kind of institutions. There is lot of scientific approach within religion in terms of assessing what are people's needs and how one should actually help the humanity to actually overcome their suffering, etc. It is true that religious kind of practices and certain kind of rituals may also become part of this larger kind of healing processes, but it is in a way these alternative kind of institutional practices are a great kind of help. So, are we justifying religion in this case? No, not necessarily. We are saying that as long as it provides them a particular set of help that actually contributes to the people's empowerment, and it is the people who will decide their choices and how they need to exercise their preferences in terms of both religious and that of modern medical kind of healing practices. So, in that sense, I think I brought in these other example only to indicate that the complexity of the social domain. Okay, it's not that they are separable. Okay, similarly, if you look at today, I think a lot of philanthropy, okay, a lot of money actually is being invested in terms of creating medical mission, and a lot of scientific and other kind of research actually is also being promoted by the religious heads and that of a lot of other kind of personnel. Okay. So, when you look at the growing medical philanthropy, which is actually providing treatment to the unaffordable and unreachable kind of population, which is again a very important dimension, I think, in terms of trying to look at what is the kind of link that one could see between these religious healing and that of the advancement of scientific and other research processes. So, in a sense, sociologists have been actually emphasizing that it is important to understand the cultural domain, cultural practices, beliefs, values, norms in each society, and these actually evolve historically based on their set of knowledge systems. Okay. Why a particular kind of a knowledge system becomes actually acceptable, why certain kind of knowledge system is not acceptable, is something that one needs to investigate, understand, rather than completely dismiss the social reality. So, if you look at certain kinds of developments that are happening, okay, a lot of tuberculosis affected patients, a lot of malaria affected people in endemic regions, okay, are actually able to seek treatment and accept lot of these modern medical kind of regimen, primarily because certain missionary activities, certain kind of organizations actually contribute to get that set of knowledge which is required. So, if you look at the way Ramakrishna Mission actually is promoting homeopathy, or Ramakrishna Mission actually contributing to certain dispensing certain kind of medical kind of practices, or when you look at the Christian organizations actually contributing to the tribal regions in terms of reaching out in terms of modern medical treatment in their own kind of mission hospitals, okay, or Mahavir Hospital, which actually provides a human service in terms of providing them treatment at 1/3 kind of a cost. All these are an examples in terms of understanding the relation between religion and that of medicine. So, in a sense, the two authors, particularly Chris Schilling and Philip Meller, the two sociologists, actually argued that in the early stages, the classical sociological theories actually ignored the contribution of these religion and other factors in terms of understanding the social domain. Okay. So, while they privileged mind over body and reason over irrationality, etc., what they did not emphasize is that how significant is to understand human body and related kind of ideas associated with human body. Okay. It is only with the critique of the feminist kind of scholarship and with the critique of the phenomenologists and symbolic kind of anthropologists and others, the way significance of the human body and it's in terms of linking that to understanding the larger healing processes that are prevalent in different parts of the world becomes very clear. So, this is where I think one needs to look at the link between religion and medicine. Let me sum up this module. I think the question about whether religion is good, religion is bad, whether it is rational, irrational, is there a link between religion and medicine? I think they are to be seen in a particular context, and this is where sociology actually advocates, saying that it is important to understand the relationship between religion and medicine in each context and culture. Okay. While I think tracing from the earliest civilization to that of the post-industrial kind of civilization, post-industrial period, what becomes evident is that there is actually very close interrelationship between religious domain and medical domain, and it is important that we put it in a perspective so that we actually understand the social reality out there.